Okay, so right now we have a motherboard mounted inside our case with CPU, cooling fan, and memory in it. Nothing else is attached to our motherboard. Right now this power supply is just sitting in here. It's not connected to anything. So when we build a PC, you want to build it in kind of parts so that you can test as you go. One of the things on chapter 16 that you'll read about is called the divide and conquer rule. And the divide and conquer rule is basically you test small parts of your PC at a time. So the last thing we want to do is install hard drive, floppy drive, CD-ROM, any other optional components. We want to just get the basic system working. So to get the basic system working, the first thing we want to do is install our front panel header items. And that includes both our USB cable and all the buttons that go and lights that go to the front of our case. Now, every motherboard's different. In this case, we've got a nice little diagram here, which is the exact same thing as the page that you would find in the motherboard manual. So if you buy a motherboard, you get a manual with it, and it'll have a page that looks just like this. If you get one off eBay or someplace that doesn't have that, you'll be able to Google it and find that same thing. So on here it says front panel header, and the biggest thing that people make mistake of is they look at it like this and they try to do it like this. You have to orient this to the same way that the motherboard is. So when I look at the front panel header right there, I look at the missing point there. So really the front panel header goes upside down in respect to this motherboard. So as I look at this, those two are the on-off, those two are the power LED, these two are the reset, and these two are the hard drive LED. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take, and I'll do one at a time, but I've got them all separated here so I can see this one's the power switch. It says power SW, and on here it says on off. They don't necessarily match. Okay. On here this one says reset SW, and that says reset. That makes sense. This one says HDD LED, and this one says HD LED. That makes sense. Okay, so as I look at this, do you see them down here? See where the pin is missing right here? You have to look to see what I'm pointing to. That corresponds to the pin missing right there. That's why there's no circle there. So that's how I know that's the way it goes. I usually start with the ones against the wall of the case. They're the hardest ones to get in. So I'm going to do the reset and the hard drive LED first. There's my hard drive LED. There's my reset. And like I said, this is not necessarily easy. And then right above my reset is my on-off. And right above my hard drive LED is my power LED. After I get those on there, I've got my USBs, and if I look at this, it says I've got USBs here, I've got USBs there. When I do the USBs, it's harder to get to this one, so I always use this one because it's out away from the wall, and I've already got it actually on mine. The way it's oriented, if you look at the USB header connector here, it says the positive 5 volts here and the ground's down here, and as I look at them, there's the positive and there's the ground, and I'm just going to orient it the same way. And if I look at that, the positive goes where there's no open pin, and the ground goes where there is an open pin. So I'm going to put those back where I just had them in the first place. And this is a common one for students and people to get wrong, and then all of a sudden they can't figure out why their front USB doesn't work. So when we do this one, it's going to be one of the ones that we're going to test early, because the last thing I want to do is cover up all these pins with my other cables, my hard drive and stuff, and then later on be like, oh, now I got to move all that stuff out of the way. I got one. I'm having a hard time with here. There we go. So now that's on there. Okay, after that's done, the only other thing we need to do to make this PC work and to boot is our power, and the only powers we need are the two motherboard powers. So I'm going to feed that down through here. I'm going to look at my clip there and make sure I get my clip. And you can see this one does either way. So I've got my 20-pin motherboard on there, and then I need my Pentium 4 power connector for the motherboard. I'm going to put that on there. So right now, if I tried to turn it on and it doesn't work, what things could be wrong?
Well, I mean,
let's talk about the things that are connected. What could be wrong?
processor.
Okay, it could be a processor. The processor solid state, it worked when we took it out. Likelihood of a processor going bad. Of the things that go bad in a computer, that's the least likely thing that I've ever had go wrong. I have had them go wrong, but it's like the last thing I've ever had go wrong. So I could have a bad processor. What else could be bad on my computer?
Memory could be wrong.
I could have bad memory. Easy thing to check. If it doesn't work, usually I get beeping from the memory. Okay, so if I get beeping, I'll suspect memory right away. It's possible that the memory goes bad. It happens. If I get beeping and the memory doesn't work, I want to swap it out with known good memory for this motherboard. Okay, because just because I've got DDR1 in doesn't mean it's the right speed, doesn't mean it's buffered or unbuffered, doesn't mean that it's ECC or non-ECC. All those things can cause it to beep. Okay, so if I put in one stick of known good memory, took out all the other ones, that would be an easy way to test that. What else could be wrong with this PC if it doesn't work?
Hard drive?
Is there a hard drive in here? Do you see a hard drive?
No.
Okay.
Where's the hard drive?
What are our components that are in here right now? What are the things that could be wrong?
Power supply.
Power supply. How hard is that to test?
Not bad.
No, it's really
Take
easy,
it out.
right? Of the things that could go wrong, power supply and memory are the two easiest to test. I just unplug the P1, plug it into our power supply tester, and I'd be able to test that one really easily. Okay, what else could be wrong?
I
Big
mean,
green thing in the middle of the computer.
I've said all of them. I'm
Big
gonna let
green thing in the middle of the computer.
the big green thing. Thomas, say it.
Big green thing.
Big green thing in the middle of the case. Big green thing in the middle of the case. Yes, the
Gotta guess
motherboard,
the
Thomas.
motherboard.
Excellent.
Okay, well,
So
you
it could be
know-
the motherboard itself could go bad, right? And of the parts in here that's the hardest to test, that's the most likely to go bad, the motherboard is it. Power supply easy to test, memory easy to swap. Motherboard hard to test. And there's lots of things that could go wrong on the motherboard. We have capacitors go bad all the time on motherboards because there's lots of capacitors. You could have not grounded yourself properly. You could have fried a relay with up to how many volts without even knowing?
I mean, 3,000.
3,000, right? You could do as many as 3,000 volts before you'd even know.
You need 3,000
Okay,
volts.
then there's one other thing that could be wrong when you try to start this. If it's not the motherboard, it's not the memory, it's not the CPU, it's not the power supply, it could easily also be
the fan.
No. It could be we screwed up the front panel headers. It happens all the time. Students think something else is wrong, when really they just plug those things in wrong and they're hitting this button and it's not turning on. Okay, so those are the things that could go wrong. So what we're going to do now is I want you guys to do just what I did. I put a couple screws in to screw the, hold on, don't walk away, to screw the power supply to the case. I did the bottom screws here so it's properly grounded to the case. Okay, I'm not doing the top ones because that also screws in the lid. I got my motherboard in, I've got my headers in, I've got my power connected. We're going to just get those minimal components and then we're going to plug it over here to the workstation and make sure our PC boots to BIOS. Okay?